as well as personal pleasure, to offer you the right hand of fellowship and to greet you as a citizen of London. The Lord Mayor and members of the court have voted unanimously in this box, which contains the certificate of your freedom. And they beg your acceptance of it in the hope that it will be and prove to be an abiding token of our gratitude, profound gratitude and admiration.
It's the cigars off till the next call comes out.
We entered it upon a conviction of purpose which was clearly comprehended by all classes and parties and by the whole mass of the people. And we have persevered together through good and evil fortune without the slightest weakening of our willpower or division of our strength. We entered it ill-prepared and almost unarmed. We entered it without counting the cost and upon a single spontaneous impulse at the call of honor. We strove, my Lord Mayor, long, too long, for peace and suffered thereby. But from the moment when we gave our guarantee that we would not stand by idly and see Poland trampled down by Nazi violence, we have never looked back, never flagged, never doubted, never flinched. We were sure of our duty, and we have discharged it and will discharge it without swerving or slackening to the end. We seek no profit, we covet no territory or aggrandizement, we expect no reward, and we will accept no compromise.
And up to an avenue made by members of the City Lands Committee in their Mazarine gowns, the Prime Minister in morning dress, Mrs Churchill dressed in black.
Obedient to the Mayor of this city, that I will maintain the franchises and customs thereof, and will keep this city harmless in that which is in me. That I will also keep the King's peace in my own person, that I will know no gatherings, no conspiracies made against the King's peace, but I will warn the Mayor whereof, or hinder it to my power, and that all these points and articles I will well and truly keep according to the laws and customs of this city to my power.
Will you sign that?
But when we remind ourselves of the frightful cruelties and tyrannies with which the German armies, their Gauleiters and subordinate tormentors are now afflicting almost all Europe, when we read every week of the mass executions of Poles, Norwegians, Dutchmen, Belgians, Czechoslovakians, Frenchmen, Yugoslavs, and Greeks, when we see these ancient and honored countries whose deeds and traditions Europe is the heir, when we see them riding under this hateful and merciless alien yoke, when we see their patriots striking back with every week a fiercer and more furious desperation, when we see all that, we may feel sure that we bear the sword of justice, and we are resolved to use that sword with the utmost severity to the full and to the end. The Royal Air Force alone I give these facts purposely in a form which conveys the truth without giving precise or detailed information to circles wider than those with which we are ourselves amiably concerned. there are two conclusions to be drawn from them. The first is that we must not assume that this great improvement will be maintained, or that bad patches do not lie ahead. The second is that, encouraged by the growing success of our methods, we must redouble our own efforts and ingenuity. The disasters which have overtaken the U-boat campaign in May and also in June have their bearing upon another phase of our offensive war. These 2 months have seen the heaviest discharges of bombs upon the munitions and wartime industrial centers of Germany. Nothing like the shattering effects produced upon the cities of the Ruhr and elsewhere has ever been
on the Lord Mayor, and everybody has begun to move on.
and that we intend to remain steadfast and unwearying in doing our duty and in doing our best, whatever may betide. Now, I have still to speak, if you will bear with me for a few moments, of the war in the Mediterranean, about which there is so much talk at the present time. Mussolini's Italian fascists, who are, after all, only a small privileged proportion of the real Italian nation, seem to be already suffering from that war of nerves of which they and their German masters made so much use in former times. So far, they have only been subjected to preliminary and discursive bombardment. But they are already speculating feverishly where the blow will fall, against how many of the shores or islands from the Gulf of Lions to the Levant, from the Riviera to the Dodecanese, it may be directed, when the blow will fall, and what will be its weight at each point. It is no part of our business to relieve their anxiety or uncertainty. They may remember how they themselves struck at the Turks in Tripoli in bygone years, at Abyssinia in recent times, at Albania, and how they fell upon Greece and set out to conquer Egypt. And they may look back regretfully to the days when they used to disturb a peaceful world, and when it rested with their pinchbeck Caesar to settle which weaker community should be struck down first. I can do nothing to help them to resolve their fears, which communicated to their allies may perhaps have led to the remarkably long delay in the opening of the promised German offensive against Russia. But I have some words of caution to say to our own people. First of all, great military operations are dominated by risks and turns of fortune. I know of no certainty in war. This is particularly true of amphibious war. Therefore, any mood of overconfidence should be austerely repressed. There is another point which should be comprehended. All large amphibious operations, especially if they require the cooperation of 2 or more countries, require long months of organization with refinements and complexities hitherto unknown in war. Bold impulses, impatient desires, and sudden flashes of military instinct cannot hasten the course of events. I cannot fall. For the rest, we must leave the unhappy Italians and their German tempters and taskmasters to anxieties which will aggravate from week to week and from month to month. It's cast upon Germany alone 35 times the tonnage of bombs which in that same 6 months of this year has been discharged upon this island. Not only has the weight of our offensive bombing grown and its accuracy multiplied, but our measures of defense, tactical and scientific, have improved beyond all compare. In one single night, nay, mainly in one single hour, we cast upon Dusseldorf, to take an example, 2,000 tons of terrible explosive and incendiary bombs for a loss of 38 aircraft. While in the first half of this same year, the whole first half of this same year, the enemy has discharged upon us no more than 1,500 tons of bombs at a cost to him of 245 aircraft. Facts and tendencies, which it must be admitted, however prosaically viewed, are by no means wholly unfavorable in their general character, must stimulate our joint exertions in the most intense degree and upon an ever larger scale. I have never indulged in shallow or fugitive optimism, but I have thought it right to make these statements because I am sure they will not lead to the slightest complacency or relaxation of that superb yet awful force which is now being brought into action. These forces will be remorselessly applied to the guilty nation and its wicked leaders who imagined that their superiority of air power would enable them to terrorize and subjugate first all Europe and afterwards the world. They will be applied, and I say, never was there such a case of the biter bit. Yeah.